Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something tonight that most people won't say out loud. When a man looks at you and says, "You're not like other women," he ain't just talking. Something inside him just moved. Something shifted. Because what he's really saying is, you don't operate the way I expected you to. And that right there, that shakes a man. Let me tell you something real, and I want you to hear this slowly. A man is shaken when a woman carries self-worth without needing validation, because that kind of confidence can't be controlled, bought, or rushed. See, most men grow up learning how to impress, how to charm, how to get reactions. We learn early that attention usually comes when we say the right thing or do just enough to keep someone interested. But when a woman already knows her value, all those tricks stop working, and that's when a man feels uncomfortable in a way he doesn't expect. A woman with self-worth doesn't need constant reassurance. She doesn't need to be chased to feel important, and she doesn't panic when communication slows down. She understands that silence doesn't reduce her value and distance doesn't erase who she is. And when a man realizes that she's not measuring herself by how often he calls or texts, something inside him shifts, because now he's not the center of her confidence. She is. That's powerful. And power, when it's quiet, shakes people the most. You see, validation, seeking energy is easy to read. It looks like over-explaining, over-giving, overthinking. But a woman with self-worth moves differently. She listens more than she speaks. She watches actions instead of chasing words. She doesn't rush to prove she's worthy of love because she already believes it. And when a man senses that, he starts asking himself questions he's not used to asking. Why isn't she trying harder? Why isn't she reacting the way others do? Why do I feel like I need to step up? That's the shake. Because now the balance of power has changed. He's no longer evaluating her. He's evaluating himself. Am I enough for her standards? Am I showing consistency? Am I treating her the way she deserves? A man may never say these thoughts out loud, but trust me, they run through his mind. And that inner pressure doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from her inner stability. A woman who doesn't need validation isn't cold or distant. She's calm, she's warm. Without being needy, she can care deeply without losing herself. And that combination is rare. When a man meets that kind of woman, he feels both drawn in and exposed at the same time. Drawn in because her energy feels safe. Exposed because he knows he can't fake his way through it. That's why this kind of woman changes the dynamic without saying a word. She doesn't threaten to leave. She doesn't demand to be chosen. She simply lives in alignment with her worth. And when a man realizes he can't lower her standards, rush her pace, or confuse her sense of self, it hits him hard. Because a woman who validates herself forces a man to either rise or step aside. Let me break this down in a way that hits home. Being different isn't loud, and it isn't about doing something dramatic to stand out. It's about consistency, discipline, and intention, and that's what really shakes a man. Most men are used to emotional noise, arguments, mood swings, sudden reactions, and constant demands for reassurance. We learn how to navigate that. We know when to apologize, when to charm, and when to wait it out. But when a woman is steady, when her behavior matches her words every single time, that's when a man feels unsure in a way he's not prepared for. A consistent woman doesn't change her standards based on her emotions. She doesn't treat you amazing one day and punish you the next. She doesn't test you to see if you care. She simply shows up as herself, and that reliability creates pressure because now a man hides behind confusion or chaos. He knows exactly where he stands, and that means he also knows when he's falling short. Intention is what separates her from the rest. She doesn't entertain attention just to feel wanted. She doesn't keep options around for ego. When she gives her time, it's deliberate. When she invests emotionally, it's thoughtful. And when she pulls back, it's not to manipulate, it's because she's paying attention to what's real. A man can feel that. He knows when he's dealing with someone who is intentional because there's weight behind her choices. That weight is unsettling. Most men expect women to bend when uncertainty shows up, to ask questions, to seek reassurance, to try harder to keep the connection alive. But a woman who is grounded doesn't rush to fix what she didn't break. She allows space to reveal truth. And in that space, a man is left alone with his own effort or lack of it. He can't blame misunderstandings. He can't hide behind excuses. The mirror is right in front of him. That's why her calm is so powerful. Calm doesn't beg, doesn't chase. Calm doesn't compete. It simply observes and decides. And when a man realizes that her decisions are based on behavior, not promises, it shakes him. Because now words don't hold the same power they used to. Consistency also builds trust in a way that feels rare. When a woman's energy doesn't fluctuate based on how much attention she's getting, a man feels safe, but also accountable. He knows that if he shows up halfway, it will be noticed. If he disappears, it will be noted, not with drama, not with confrontation, but with distance. And distance from a woman who is consistent and intentional feels heavy because she's not withdrawing to punish. She's stepping back to protect her peace. And that's the moment a man realizes this woman isn't different because she's trying to be. She's different because she knows who she is, and she refuses to abandon that for anyone. Let me tell you why emotional discipline is more powerful than beauty, attention, or charm, and why it shakes a man to his core. Attraction might get his attention, but emotional control keeps it. Most men are used to emotions being on display, anger expressed immediately, hurt turned into arguments, disappointment turned into long explanations. We learn how to react to that. We know how to calm it down, deflect it, or wait until it passes. But when a woman feels deeply and still chooses control, that's when a man realizes he's dealing with something different. Emotional discipline doesn't mean she doesn't care. It means she cares enough to protect her dignity. She doesn't explode when she's hurt. She doesn't beg when she feels insecure. She doesn't argue to be understood. Instead, she pauses, she processes, she decides how much access someone deserves to her emotions. And when a man sees that she can feel everything and still remain composed, it unsettles him. because now he can't read her the way he reads everyone else. A woman without emotional discipline reacts. A woman with it responds. That difference changes everything. When a man pulls back and expects anxiety, but is met with calm, he feels the shift immediately. When he delays communication and expects frustration, but receives patience mixed with self-respect, it forces him to question his impact. He starts to wonder if he still has influence, and that uncertainty is powerful. Men are wired to respond to cause and effect. When behavior creates predictable reactions, we feel in control. But emotional discipline breaks that cycle. Her peace isn't dependent on his actions, and that removes leverage he didn't even realize he had. She doesn't use emotions as a weapon, and she doesn't allow them to be used against her. She owns them quietly. That quiet strength is magnetic. Emotional discipline also means she knows when to speak and when silence says more. She doesn't fill gaps with explanations. She doesn't chase closure. She understands that clarity comes from behavior, not conversations that go in circles. And when she chooses silence, it's not punishment, it's protection. A man can feel that difference, and it makes him reflect instead of react. What really shakes a man is realizing that he can't destabilize her. He can't confuse her into insecurity. He can't provoke her into losing control. And once he understands that her emotions are grounded within her, not handed over to him, he either rises to meet that level or feels exposed by his own lack of control. Because beauty fades, attention shifts, and charm wears off. But emotional discipline, that leaves a permanent impression. It tells a man that this woman won't lose herself, won't abandon her values, and won't stay where her peace is compromised. And knowing that he can't shake her is exactly what shakes him. Let me explain why a man is most shaken when he realizes he can't control or predict you. Control doesn't always look like dominance. Most of the time, it looks like expectation. Expecting how you'll react, how quickly you'll respond, how long you'll wait, how much you'll tolerate. Men get comfortable when they think they understand the pattern. Once a pattern is learned, effort drops. And that's exactly why unpredictability rooted in self-respect changes everything. A woman who can't be controlled isn't chaotic. She's grounded. Her unpredictability comes from boundaries, not emotions. One day she's warm, open, and affectionate. Another day she's distant and quiet, not because she's playing games, but because she's responding to behavior in real time. And when a man can't predict which version of you he'll get based on his effort, it forces him to stay conscious. He can't relax into complacency. Most men unconsciously test limits. They delay responses to see if you'll panic. They pull back to see if you'll chase. They give mixed signals to see how much confusion you'll tolerate. When those tests fail, when you don't react the way he expects, his sense of control slips. Instead of you adjusting to him, he feels pressure to adjust to you. That pressure is unsettling. When a man realizes he can't manipulate your emotions, he becomes more aware of his actions. He knows disappearing has consequences. He knows inconsistency will be noticed. He knows effort is required because nothing about you is guaranteed. You're present by choice, not by attachment. And that realization forces him to treat you differently. What truly shakes him is the moment he understands that your absence wouldn't destroy you. Many men feel secure when they believe they are needed more than they are wanted. But when a woman is with him because she chooses to be, not because she's afraid to be alone, the dynamic flips. Now, losing you becomes a real possibility. Unpredictability tied to self-respect also means you don't negotiate your boundaries. You don't threaten to leave. You don't give warnings. You simply adjust your access. Less effort gets less of you. More effort gets more of you. And because this system is fair, calm, and consistent, a man can't argue with it. He can only respond, and responding requires effort. A man feels shaken when he realizes he can't rush your pace, confuse your emotions, or control the outcome. He understands that no matter how charming he is or how long he's been around, your standards don't bend. You're not attached to potential. You're paying attention to reality. That awareness creates respect, and respect creates attraction that's deeper than desire, because now he's not dealing with someone he can predict and manage. He's dealing with a woman who knows herself, trusts herself, and refuses to be controlled by uncertainty. Let me tell you why respect grows the moment a woman knows when to stay and when to walk away, and why that realization hits a man harder than any argument ever could. Most men aren't shaken by words. We're shaken by consequences. And a woman who understands her limits, who doesn't overstay where she's undervalued, introduces consequences without ever raising her voice. A woman who knows when to stay isn't desperate. She stays because she sees effort, alignment, and consistency. She doesn't stay out of hope alone. She doesn't stay to fix someone. She stays because what's being offered meets her standards. And that clarity makes a man feel secure. He knows what's required. He understands the rules. But here's the part that really matters. She also knows when to leave. Walking away isn't impulsive for her. It's measured. It comes after observation, after patience, after giving space for someone to show who they truly are. She doesn't threaten to leave during emotional moments. She doesn't use it as leverage. She simply reaches a point where her peace matters more than her attachment. And when that happens, her departure feels final, even if she never says it out loud. That's what shakes a man, because most men expect multiple chances. They expect forgiveness to reset the scoreboard. They expect words to undo patterns. But when a woman quietly withdraws after repeated inconsistency, it forces a man to confront reality. He realizes she wasn't bluffing. She wasn't playing hard to get. She was paying attention. A woman who can walk away calmly sends a powerful message without saying a word. It says, I value myself enough to not argue for respect. That kind of self-respect is rare. And when a man encounters it, he feels exposed. He understands that he can no longer rely on charm, apologies, or promises. Only changed behavior will matter. What makes this even more impactful is that she doesn't leave with bitterness. She doesn't try to prove her point. She doesn't seek closure. She leaves with dignity, and dignity is heavy. It lingers. It makes a man replay conversations, reconsider moments, and question his own choices. Knowing when to walk away also means she isn't afraid of being alone. She doesn't cling to potential or memories. She understands that staying in the wrong situation slowly teaches someone how to treat her poorly. So she chooses distance over disrespect, even when it hurts, and that choice creates respect, even from someone who failed to show it initially. A man is shaken when he realizes that her presence was a privilege, not a guarantee, that she stayed because she wanted to, not because she needed to. And once he understands that she will not stay where she feels unsure, unvalued, or unseen, he sees her differently. Because a woman who knows when to stay and when to walk away doesn't just protect her heart, she forces a man to face his actions. And that realization changes the way he views her forever. Let me tell you why a woman who chooses herself forces a man to reflect on himself, and why that kind of woman stays in a man's mind long after the moment has passed. Most men are used to being the focus, used to being considered first, used to women adjusting schedules, emotions, priorities, and expectations around them. It's not always intentional, but it's familiar. So when a woman shows up who doesn't abandon herself for attention, it creates a mirror a man wasn't prepared to look into. A woman who chooses herself doesn't make loud announcements about independence. She doesn't constantly remind you that she's strong. She simply lives in alignment with her values. She keeps her routines. She protects her time. She maintains her standards, whether someone is watching or not. And when a man realizes that her life doesn't shrink or expand based on his presence, something shifts internally. Because now he's not the prize by default. Choosing herself means she doesn't sacrifice her peace to keep a connection alive. If conversations feel draining, she limits them. If effort feels one-sided, she adjusts her energy. If respect feels inconsistent, she creates distance. Not out of anger, not to teach a lesson, but because she listens to herself. And when a man sees that she responds to reality instead of emotion, he's forced to examine his own behavior. That's where reflection begins. Most men don't self-reflect until something meaningful is at risk. A woman who chooses herself introduces that risk without drama. She doesn't fight for attention. She doesn't compete for affection. She doesn't chase clarity. She understands that clarity comes from consistency, and when consistency is missing, she chooses herself instead of confusion. That choice makes a man uncomfortable because it removes distraction. There's no argument to deflect from, no emotional reaction to manage, no chaos to blame. There's just her calm decision to step back and protect her well-being. And in that silence, a man is left alone with his own actions. He starts replaying moments. He starts questioning effort. He starts recognizing patterns he ignored before. Not because she demanded accountability, but because her absence created space for awareness. When a woman chooses herself, she stops absorbing the emotional weight of the relationship, and suddenly that weight lands where it belongs. On him. A woman like this doesn't punish or reward behavior emotionally. She adjusts access. Less effort means less presence. More effort means more connection. It's simple. It's fair. And because it's fair, a man can't argue with it. He can only decide whether he's willing to rise to that level or walk away. What truly shakes a man is realizing that he can't be the source of her happiness or her pain. He understands that she enjoys him, but she doesn't need him to feel whole. And that realization challenges his identity. Am I adding value? Am I showing up with intention? Am I growing, or am I just comfortable? A woman who chooses herself also shows a man what self-respect looks like in motion, not in speeches, not in ultimatums, in behavior. She doesn't stay to be misunderstood. She doesn't over-explain her boundaries. She doesn't beg to be seen. She trusts that the right person will recognize her worth without being convinced. And if he doesn't, she still chooses herself. That's the part that lingers. That's the part that stays with a man long after she's gone. Because she didn't leave him questioning her value. She left him questioning his own.